Recording in progress. Awesome. Here we go. So, be the market expert. And just the very first thing is NAR just released their May numbers. And I just put it side by side with DMARS. And so if we're looking at both of these, it's a little interesting. So if we look at sales for May, it says the 4.11 million dollar or 4 million units. Um, which is, if we were to look at this thing and we move this out of the way, month over month, that's down, as well as year over year, that's down as well. So less sales is the key that we're looking at here. So sales units are going down nationally speaking. Inventory is at 3.1 months in May, right? And so we look at that, that would be again, if not another home hit the market in May, we would run out in 3 months. And so we would make it a Q3, but then after Q3, no more inventory. Yet, median sales price is going up. So the median sales price, and there's no numbers that look like this in Colorado, but 5.8% year over year is the median sales price, which is just interesting data, right? Like if we're looking at the median, really we're taking all the low ones, we're taking all the high ones, and we're just working our way into the middle. And so that middle price point, $419,000, is the national median sales price. But if we look at that against Colorado, and so let's go, we see that closed homes, 4,198 homes were sold in the month of May, which is up 5.7%. Okay, cool. So we're actually seeing some sales. And if we were to look at inventory, we have less inventory. 2.18 months of inventory than the national numbers that the nation has, but that's actually up for us by 16.58%. So almost up 17% is what we're seeing in inventory. But we look at our median sales price. Let's go over to closed. Median close price 600,000, which is actually down 0.5%. 41 basis points if we were to look at this thing. So $600,000 versus the median sales price of the nation of 419, which is just weird. And I think that this is like some of the conversations that we're having is we all went through real estate school at one point, and through real estate school, we did talk about supply and demand. And it's funny because I feel like there's a test question somewhere in there that talks about, what happens if interest rates go up? And they were like, well, demand goes down and prices go down with it. But yet we're not really seeing that. Even in Colorado, I mean, down 41 basis points, that's not a huge number. I mean, $600,000. So really what we're seeing is we're seeing more homes come to the market. We're seeing more motivated sellers listing their house, but interest rates for the most part have slowed something down unless it's a truly well-positioned, well-priced home with a demographic that's actually moving into it. And we can see that. So Colorado, we're moving up months of inventory. So there is a lot of correlation here, but it's just kind of interesting to look at, especially as we're seeing just months of inventory going up. Sales prices are, going up for the most part as well. Median, like I said, median in Colorado dropped a little bit, but for the most part, what we are seeing is more inventory. Interest rates are starting to drop at this point, and home prices for the most part are going up, at least nationally speaking. So we need to be watching this as we're going forward, especially as things are happening the closer and closer we get to the election, as well as we're going to look at this next tab that we open, because this is probably going to drive a lot of stuff as well. So let me switch my screen share. And let's just look at Chrome. All right, cool. Let's get rid of this. So when we're looking at this thing, this came out June 20th. This came out last week. It says, are housing permits showing recession risk? And this does need to be top of mind for us. Like as we're going forward, this housing permits is going to be a big thing because this is going to dictate a lot of stuff happening for us. So we're showing single family softness to go with 5 units now. So we're looking at things as the impact on the elevated federal funds rate and mortgage rates on our economy is stark. The 5 unit sector in particular entered a recession in September of 2023. Okay, cool. So let's say multifamily units. Multifamily units entered into a recession, which all that means is we're seeing people pull back, right? People are pulling back from building in this area. And those permits have been at a COVID-19 recession low. So, guys, when we start thinking about like COVID-19, this isn't 2019, this is COVID-19. So, this is 2020 that we're talking about. When we're talking about 2020 lows, remember the world is coming to an end. That's the biggest thing. When we start talking about COVID-19 recession low, the world is coming to an end. Everyone's pulling back. The brakes are going. We're thinking that we're entering into a world where we're going to be wearing masks for the rest of our lives. We know that we have to social distance. We can't get too close to anybody, right? We are back to that recessionary period when it comes to these units. And said, however, in the last few months, single family permits have also been falling. Okay, so we're seeing multifamily permits go down, and now we're seeing single family permits go down. So we're seeing that there is less building happening. And I get it, right? Some of you right now are thinking, like, Charles, no, like I'm driving around and I am seeing building happening. I am seeing multifamily going up. I'm seeing single families. And yes, you're absolutely right. We'll look at that here in a second. The key turning point in every economic cycle is when construction workers lose their jobs. Think about that. That's going to be one of the biggest things. If we stop, right, this is one of the only domestic products that we really have in the United States, right? Just to be thinking about this. We are a economy, we are a civilization here in the United States where we import and we consume. We import and we consume. This is really one of the only products that we have in the United States that we actually like make ourselves. And I'm not talking about like all the other like things that go with it, right? We're importing um refrigerators, like we're bringing in all that stuff. Like the chips are made in other places, but we actually build our homes in the United States, right? And logically, that makes sense. From census building permits, privately owned housing units authorized by building permits in May were at a seasonally adjusted rate of, right, we're going to go through that, and it says 3.8% below the revised rate of April and 10% below May. All right, so we're seeing less and less homes being built, even less than what we saw previous this year. Let's take a look at this first one. Housing permits. Total permits are back to the COVID-19 recession level. So we can see here, right here's COVID-19, here is 2020, and we can see the permits that are going through. And here's our line, right? So they're going through here, here's our line, and we've actually started dipping down. This is total permits, right? This is housing permits. So we all know that 5-unit permits have been at a COVID-19 recession low for some time now. But what is different now is that the single family permits have fallen too. We still have a backlog of single family homes that need to be built, and purchase application data for those new homes is growing. However, once those homes get built, and if permits for new single family homes continue to fall, that will be the issue for construction labor. Okay, so this is big. These are people that have jobs. They might be working by the piece, right? This might be someone that gets brought in to put in a couple toilets, right? Sinks, light fixtures, right? Working by the piece. This could be the framing crew that's coming in. This could be the drywalling crew. These are people that are a large demographic of people that will be affected at a huge, huge level. Yes, we've all been affected, right? Like commissions are down. Commissions are down industry wide right now because of interest rate. And so we're seeing a lot of people with cold feet jumping into this space and purchasing, which is affecting commission. Yet there were still new homes, there were still things being built. Now, what gets interesting is we'll look at the timetable here in a second. So here's single family permits. So this is for the last 3 months. So we're not looking at full units anymore, like all housing permits. We're just looking at single family permits. And you can see this is kind of where we're living right now. So this is permit in 2024 versus where we were in 2020. And you can see that we're dipping low, right? This is when we realized that life was okay. Yes, 2020 was no fun. COVID is bad. And yet, like, we came back to life. we can see this is where interest rates start getting crazy. So this is where it gets interesting. When we start looking at like 2022, 2023, 2023 was arguably like the worst year of real estate ever. Like this actually, 2024 isn't bad in the grand scheme of things. 2023 super sucked. Because interest rates are super high. There's a lot of people that backed off. Remember, interest rates are even higher than they are now. This, we just thought that we were just over it and we were just waiting for interest rates to start dropping, and they're just dropping way slower than we thought they would. So then it starts picking back up. Like we're like, oh, there's a need, but now we're starting to go back down. If we were to look at this, what gets interesting is we look at housing starts are now trending at the same levels during the COVID-19 recession. So this is where we're looking. These are housing starts. So this is actually the data where they pull a permit and they actually start building the house. All right. So they pulled a permit and now they're actually starting to do the work. And you can see that, yes, there might be some permits. Like these people might have said, like, hey, they bought the land. They said that they wanted to do the work, but you can actually see that we're seeing a decrease here. So yes, they might have plowed the land. They might have done some different things. The work on the properties are starting to come to a standstill as well. And once we start going down here, this is where it starts getting weird. People start losing their jobs. So economic cycles have similar patterns. One, that the Fed raises rates too much and it gets too restrictive, which leads to housing to go into a recession first. We're the first industry, right? This is where it gets weird. When we start seeing restrictive rates, we deal with one of the highest price tag products in the United States, right? Like we talked about this. We help people purchase the largest financial decision that most Americans make in their lifetime, which is real estate. Which that also means is when money gets tight and people stop spending money, one of the first things that they stop buying is actually houses, right? Like that's one of the first things that starts slowing down because you can't just throw that on a credit card. Well, there's some credit cards that you can, but most credit cards you can't. And so you're looking at this thing. It says for the past few months, we have been creating jobs in this sector. But if this trend continues to fall, then the labor pool is at risk. And this is where it gets weird. If the labor pool gets at risk at this point, a lot of people lose their jobs. We actually do see interest rates go down. So it's like a double-edged sword, right? Because we don't want people to lose their jobs. We don't want that. If anyone is here, that's like one of the most un-American things that we could possibly do is like, dear Lord, please let people lose their jobs so interest rates come down. We don't want that. And so what's interesting though is if these people were to lose their jobs, if this building sector takes a massive hit, then that's a huge labor force population, which at that point, I do believe that the Fed does lower rates a lot quicker because that's what they've been looking to do. They've been looking to slow down the labor force. Like that's all they've been doing. We've been seeing inflation data come down. Like inflation data has been coming down. The only thing that hasn't been happening is unemployment at this point. This would be a monstrous sector that would get hit where we would actually see interest rates at this point. If we were to look as well into this, and I think I skipped over it, but what's an interesting line item, and maybe it's in this next slide that I have for you, but if we were to look at this, what's also interesting is that a housing start, these multi-units take 22 months to complete. That's why we keep seeing so much stuff. And if anyone's over here thinking like, yeah, but Charles, I've been seeing these buildings getting built. When do they get started? And that's one of the big things that we have to keep in mind as well. That while we've been seeing the cranes and we've been seeing some of these building things, especially if you've been driving down Ralston anytime soon, there's been a lot of building happening. And that building's been happening for months now. But when those get completed, what's the next job? What are they going to move on to? And we'll see it. We'll see what happens. And this might not be good for the job sector, but at the same time, we would see interest rates. So, however, for now, we will keep a close eye on it. For those who hear the stories about higher rates being inflationary, that is what they've been talking about. And eventually, the restrictive policy will prevent future production on housing. That's one of the big things. While we think that the average person does get hurt by interest rates going up, very true. But what also happens is investors stop spending money as well. When the cost of money starts rising to a level where it doesn't make sense for investors to make money on their money, they're not a charity. They are a for-profit business and they will put their money in other places if it does not make sense to invest in real estate. So, like as always, as we go through here, let's look at what Logan Motoshami had to say last week. And so we're looking at rear view facing data now. Why are home prices at an all-time high with more inventory? This is what I'm saying. Like, this is weird. This is not what we learned in real estate school. And as we're going through, we are seeing inventory low, even though it's coming up. We're seeing prices of homes at all times high. We just saw that with NAR data, right? We just saw that home prices are the highest they have ever been, and they have rose 5.8% over last year over year data, almost 6%. And yet we know that interest rates are not in anybody's favor. So both existing housing inventory and home prices have been rising together year over year, which might seem odd at first glance since existing home sales are trending near all-time lows. However, we can look at some things and clean that stuff up. So we just kind of went all over this stuff. We just kind of talked about the NAR data. So let's look at this. We've changed it a little bit. So below are 4 charts showing the data from NAR mentioned above, and we kind of talked about those things. So sales, we can see here's sales right here. This is 2024 May, 4.1 million home sales. We can actually see that that is better than what we saw in the beginning of the year, right? Here's January. 2023 was really low. And this is what I'm saying, guys. Like, well, we're here. And while it doesn't feel good because we're living in the now, 2023 was actually way worse. 2023 was one of the worst years in real estate that we possibly could have had. Oh, you're not seeing anything? Yes, you're supposed to be seeing something. Oh, interesting. Is it really not coming through, Taylor? Hmm. Once if I do that.
That might have just been for me. Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. That's too funny. I think it was
I
just for
just
you, but
switched it. Sorry.
good deal. No, you're right. So if we look at this thing, right? This is 2024 data. Here's 2023. 2023 was a way worse year for real estate than what we're experiencing now. It just, like I said, just doesn't feel good because we're living in it. So median home prices, here it is. So while we're selling less homes, this is national data. We're selling less homes. Prices are going up month over month. 5 consecutive months. I guess that's like four. 1, 2, 3, 4. I lied. That's four. 4 consecutive months over month data going up. Prices going up. Prices going up across the nation. And so while we looked at Colorado, and Colorado's down slightly, across the United States, we're actually seeing home prices go up. Months of supply also going up. Inventory also going up, which we would expect, right? If we see inventory going up, we would expect months of supply to go up. So it's kind of weird. We're seeing less houses being sold. We are seeing more houses hit the market. And this one has 5 months of month over month data of inventory rising. And yet home prices are still going up, which is so counterintuitive from everything that we have learned in real estate school and the supply and demand in general. So kind of interesting as we go through. And as we're seeing some things, and we'll kind of look at interest rates. Again, interest rates are showing that they're going to start to soften here for a couple different reasons. We need to make sure that we're taking massive mind share from our databases, from our sphere of influence, from social media that we're going through, because that's where it's going to get interesting. While inventory is still going up, and we looked at, Colorado with 2 months of inventory, and we're like, it's 16% up. What happens is if interest rates start to go down, it starts to feel a whole lot like 2020 again, 2021, which was not good, savagely unhealthy. Like that's a market that we really don't want to be in. That things are moving quickly. We're seeing prices above asking because there's not enough inventory. And again, with not enough inventory and the builders slowing down, there's not going to be a whole lot of options out there. So we're really going to have to watch this and maintain it and be able to have our finger on the pulse and be having conversation the biggest thing that we're going to need to do is make sure that we're having as many conversations with our database as possible to figure out like what you should be doing, right? As I'm looking at this thing and I'm looking at, we can go in interest rates and we'll talk about that here in a second, but we should be taking a pulse of Mr. and Mrs. potential buyer, future buyer. At what interest rate does it make sense for you to enter back into the buyer pool? Like that is the databases, the pipelines that we should be building. So existing home sales, you can see this, like as we look at it, here we are, we're that dark red line, 2024. Here is 2022, and here's 2023. Again, 2023 was the worst. 2022 got weird only because interest rates started to spike, and here we are. We're living in this, okay, 2% probably isn't real anymore, and if the right home comes across the market and I can afford it, I will buy it. That's the mentality of buyers that we have right now. It's a motivated buyer that the right home comes across and they're purchasing it. They're not rushing out and just buying homes for the sake of buying homes anymore. Here's what's also interesting: pending home sales data. So we look at this thing, we're 2024, we're this black line right here. You can actually see that we have some pending home sales. Again, here's interest rates rising in 2022, or I'm sorry, 2022. So where they start to go down right here. Here's 2023 where they were pretty high and they kind of lived in this area. These are the kind of things that we need to be looking at. Pending home sales, it says that our weekly pending sales contract data is showing growth year over year. It's nothing spectacular, but it's growth nonetheless. So what this tells us, guys, is yes, interest rates are still high, but people are getting more comfortable. And we can't be putting our own preconceived notions out there about what interest rates are doing. We don't know what the motivation of our buyers looks like. And so to illustrate this a little bit, I can tell you back in the day, when I was an operations manager for Depot, one of the things that we would talk about is that we would not use our own checkbooks to help somebody fix a problem. And what that meant was just this, like, if someone had a problem, let them know what the option is. Like, this is the best way to do it. This is the right way to do it. We're not going to say, hey, you just need duct tape, go to this aisle and duct tape it. We're going to tell them, like, these are the parts you need. These are the tools that you need to go do it. And if they say, you know what, actually, let's take a step back. Is there a cheaper solution? Then we'll help them with that. We don't know the motivation. While we're looking and we're saying, oh, these interest rates are pretty high. We have a high price point in Colorado. We're seeing, home sales are down. We truly don't know what's going through our buyers' heads. So let's make sure that we're educating them, let them know what is going on. So when they do raise their hand and say, you know what, I am actually looking to buy, they're thinking of us because we've been doing the education this whole time. National single family inventory. So here it is. Here's a good representation, a good visual of this. Inventory is going up. Here's 2020. Here's 2021. And this is what I'm talking about, guys. Like, while we're living here, you can see we're well below pre-pandemic levels. Well below pre-pandemic levels. And this is why this is an issue. Being this low means if anything happens with interest rates, if interest rates, for whatever reason, I'm not saying that they are, but let's say interest rates do hit flat 6% this year. Or shoot, let's say they get all the way to 5.5%. Like something happens, 5.5% interest rates. There is not enough inventory for the amount of buyers that would come out of the caves that they've been living in, right? And so this is not good data. We want to live up here. We truly want to be up in this sector right here, because if interest rates start coming down, there's more people and there's more competition on both sides. There's more buyer competition and there's more housing competition. So we're not seeing 10 offers per home, right? We're seeing less offers per home because they have choices, which actually keeps prices down. We don't want to be back in 2021 anymore. And so this number we want to see continue to rise so that when interest rates start dropping and people start raising their hands, they have more options. And then, as always, right, percentage of properties with a recent price reduction, here we are. So 36%, we know that 33% is the national average. We see 33% of all homes, 1/3 of homes in the United States take a price cut every year. So we're pretty much in the standard right here. So all in all, there's nothing too surprising about today's exciting home sales report. Mortgage rates have fallen recently, and last week was our first back-to-back week of purchase application data growth. So cool. Rates are going down. I think that's very, very important. Rates are going down. We'll look at it here on this next slide. But as rates are going down, guys, there's going to be people that are going to start raising their hand. So let's look at this. 6.8% is our conforming, right? Here's our conventional loan, 6.8%. And if we look at FHA, we're talking about 6.6. Here it is for the course of the year, right? We started the year off at six, let's call it 6.6 and really 6.5, right? Like 6.6, 6.5. And here we are today. We're sitting at 6.8 and 6.6. So as we're looking at this thing, I think a couple things definitely matter. And with that, I think the biggest thing that as we're looking at this thing is, where do your buyers raise their hand? Have you guys gone out and had conversations with your people? And what I mean by that is everyone's clients, database buyers have a number that they believe that they're comfortable buying a house, right? So like as we're looking at this thing, I'm thinking of like a chart, and what this chart looks like is I have 5% buyers, 5.5% buyers, 6%, 6.5%, right? And are we going through and are we building a pipeline that says like when these rates get to 6.5%, I need to call these buyers because they said they'd be ready to buy. When interest rates get to 6.25%, these people said that they were ready to buy. That's how we need to be looking at our pipelines right now. People are truly looking at their monthly payment. We know that their monthly payment is directly correlated with interest rates. We should be having conversations. People are saying interest rates are too high. Awesome. I totally get that. Interest rates are too high. The cost of money is too much. You want to wait. At what price point per month are you comfortable moving on? So we need to know what their interest rate is. Oh yeah, it's 6%, it's 6.5%. As we're seeing these things go down, we do know the competition is going to go up. So let's be proactive. Let's start having conversations with our people to know like what is their magic number. So we are going down, right? I think that's the biggest thing. Like as I look at this thing for the full year, right, starting January 2nd to yesterday, because I don't get today's data on this thing, not yet at least, that we're looking and we're going back down. We're higher than we started the year, but we had this little blip right here and we're trending in the right direction. Again, as this thing starts to go lower, more hands will go up. Now, if we were looking at this just in a 1-year snapshot, that's what I'm saying about 2023, everyone. Like 2023 was rough, right? We're here. We were almost touching 8%. And again, there were people that were at 8%. This is prime. This is well qualified buyers, right? Like as I'm looking at this, these are the people that have great credit. They are going through they're paying their bills on time. This is the ideal buyer is getting these percentages, which is the same for over here. So in all reality, these people are closer to 8%, and these people are really closer to 7% in the grand scheme of things. So at what price point, at what dollar do we need to start raising our hand? And like, really, are we looking for the 6.3? Like this has been the bottom. 6.3 and 6.6, because that's really what it is. Here's 6.3 and 6.4. It's called 6.5. There's the bottom. That in 1 year's time, that is as low as we've seen. If we go to a 2-year package, look at 2-year. Here we go. Here's 2022, 5.2%. I don't think we get down to that again, right? I don't think that that is a realistic number that we really see. There's a lot of people that believe that we live at 5.5 for a very long time. But the issue is we don't know when we're going to get there. Like 2 years worth of data has just gone up and up and up. And yeah, we've seen it start coming back down. Inflation, right? Inflation starts going down. They start lowering it, but we still got good jobs. And so the job data is still coming through and they're not dropping it as quick anymore. Like it's kind of hovering and floating around. And really, like I said, we'll see when construction workers start to lose their job because it's inevitable at this point, what truly happens with these numbers. And then if we were to look at Altos, right, just because, guys, we should be doing this. And this is some of the numbers that we should be taking to every listing appointment that we be going on, put in the zip code where that client lives and print this off. And if we were to look at this thing, we can see that things are pretty flat for what we saw, except for price decreases. Price decreases are still ticking up and relists are still ticking up. So what this data is looking like, right? We're at 699.5, which is higher than the rest of the Denver metro. We're almost $100,000 more expensive in at least the zip code of ARRR2. We can see the median price of new listings has flattened out. We can see price per square foot. And guys, this is just seasonality at this point, right? Like we are truly seeing seasonality kick back in. And the interesting thing about seasonality is the seasonality that we're truly talking about and playing with is what we historically see, but we do know that we will have huge impacts in the swing in demand depending on what interest rates do. We have seasonality attached to interest rate that is going into the motivations of buyers right now and sellers listing their houses. When we do start to see interest rates start going down, we're going to start to see interest go back up. And the seasonal market is broken in that sense. We actually see this swing actually go up a little bit higher than it's typically gone. And it really is interest rate driven. Price decreases 41%. So ARRR2, when we just saw that 33%, historically speaking, is the national average for price decreases, we were sitting at like 36% for the nation. Our VADA ARRR2 is at 41%. So we're seeing more price decreases, which goes hand in hand with this relist, right? We're seeing more homes get relisted. So we're seeing the expectations of buyers to be able to get a product at the amount of money that they're having to pay every month for the next 30 years. They're expecting that product to be in better condition. And that's very true. So as we're going through and we're taking this report and we're sitting at a dining room table with a potential seller, we need to be showing them all this stuff. Here's what the median price point looks in the zip code. No, that doesn't mean that's what we can get for your home. And like we're going through and we're talking about, this is what happens. We're seeing 41% of all homes take a price hit if we overprice it, which means also if we're overpricing it, on average, your home's going to sit for 2 months, and there's a 40% chance that you will have to do a price decrease. So does it make sense that we price it right the first time? You sit on the market for about 25 days. Those are the conversations we need to be having. We need to educate. Numbers tell stories. We can actually show this information, have conversations with people, and show them what the impact of their decision makes on what happens to their house. And as we look at this, right, $3,000 is our median rent price. And we can see over here that we're just slightly less of a seller's market than we were last month. They're giving us a score of 60. Doesn't mean a whole lot. But if we were look, let's go a little bit further. Let's go 699.5. So let's go 699.5. Let's go to the zip code specifically. So here we are. Here's our zip code, guys. And keep in mind, like what's cool about our website, this is next door boundaries and zip code is where we're pulling from. So that's a fun looking house. But if we were, let's go 699.5. See how close we can get. There's 700. It's been sitting a little bit. Price drop. Here's a townhome also. Price drop of looks like $1. They dropped to $1 to get some movement. Back in the day, that was a tactic. Our websites don't really do that much anymore. At least our MLS doesn't. I'm not seeing 699.5, so let's just go find a new home. Maybe. Lots of price drop, guys. We see this, right? Like as we're looking through here, we're seeing price drop. We just saw 41% of all homes in ARRR2 have a price drop. We're seeing that. Here is the visual representation of that information. Like as we're looking through here, price drop after price drop after price drop. Let's go back up to the top. We're not seeing anything. So let's just find something $700,000. Here's what $700,000 gets you. And in all reality, this might not be a super accurate. Well, that one doesn't want to work. But it might not be a super accurate representation only because it's been sitting for so long that who even knows what that looks like. So let's look at this one. Here is just a new build, right? And so this is a townhome. So this is 674. They did have it priced at 681. So this is even a price drop on a builder home. It's because this is what's also interesting. Like as we're going through and we're looking at these different things, Here is a brand new build that took a $7,000 price drop. Be thinking about that. We're seeing even new homes, brand new homes, they're starting to lower their prices. And this is also an incentive for them to slow down work. If they can't sell for top dollar because they aren't a charity, this isn't a nonprofit. They have stockholders, they got employees, they got things to make money. And so as we're looking at this thing, if these guys are having to do price cuts, they're not incentivized to keep building. So the cost of money is going up, plus they're having to drop their home prices. They are going to slow down, and we saw that in the data. But here it is, and we look at this. This is 674. This is just slightly lower than what we're seeing. And as we're looking at this thing, this is what's important, guys. For this price point, this is $4,000 a month. $4,000 a month if you brought 20% down, sitting at 6.9% interest rate. These are the conversations. This was going through the mentality of what our home buyers are looking at. And so one of the big things that we have to keep in mind, right? We just saw national data and we were to look at this thing 6% year over year. We know historically speaking is 4%. Historically speaking, we see home prices go up 4% year over year every year since the 1990s. This is the conversation that we should be having. So yes, I get it. You're going to be at $4,000 a month, which is $800 more than what you'd be paying in rent. But the trade-off is the appreciation. You're getting appreciation on this thing. I don't know when interest rates are going down. I do know that they are. We are not date the rate, marry the house people. Don't ever use that. That scares me. But we do know that interest rates are going to go down at some point. We just don't know when. So when interest rates do go down, as people are building equity in their home, they always have the ability to refinance at some point. I don't know when that's going to make financial sense. And honestly, depending on how long they have to live in the home, it may never make sense to refinance the house, but they'll at least be having equity that when they go to sell the house, they should be able to put more to their bottom line, which is a lot of the conversations that we need to have to show that we are the real estate economists of choice.